Greetings, everyone, and welcome to ION Africa. My name is Awasar, and I am Assistant Director for Academic Affairs at the African Studies Center at Michigan State University. And ION Africa is our biweekly seminary series. We are very honored today to have Dr. Vera Ochende as our guest speaker. And before I pass it over to her, I'll give a brief introduction. So Dr. Vera Ochende is an assistant professor of statistics and data science at United States International University, Africa. She works at the intersection of computational statistics, artificial intelligence, and global health, with a focus on advancing equitable, data-driven solutions to Africa's pressing challenges. Currently, an Eric and Wendy Smith AI in Sciences Africa Faculty Fellow based at the University of Michigan's Meadows. She is developing AI tools to help vulnerable communities in Kenya adapt to extreme urban heat driven by climate change. Her research combines machine learning, Bayesian modeling, and agent-based simulation to map heat risk, predict health impacts, and inform intervention such as early warning systems, shaded areas, and cooling stations. Her broader expertise spans computational global health, including modeling Rift Valley fever in Uganda, COVID-19 in Kenya, and harmonizing cohort health data across Africa. Beyond research, she co-designed the TI Analytics Accelerator Program, USIU Africa and Michigan State University, and funded by AAP. She also convenes the USIU Africa Data Sciences Summit and leads outreach initiatives like Empower Her Math Girl. So thank you very much, Dr. Ochende, for being here. We're glad to have you.
I hope you're able to view my screens.
Yes.
Please just confirm. Okay, thank you so much.
Yes. No problem.
Thank you so much, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are. My name is Vera Otiende, an assistant professor at USIU Africa and a Schmidt Sciences Fellow here at the University of Michigan. Thanks so much, Awa, for this invite. I am honored and excited to be here today to speak to something that is so passionate to my heart, very dear to my heart, and something that is a huge investment and a big wave in the African space. So I'll be talking about building African data science and AI capacity in Africa, but specifically we'll be looking at what are the sorts of investments we have in terms of training, collaboration, and community engagement across the continent. So I'll start very quickly by looking at the roadmap on what I'm going to cover. And so specifically, I will talk about the current landscape and when we monetize that kind of investment, where exactly do we sit in Africa? And of course, appreciating some of the startups that are cut across different spaces in Africa. And then I'll also speak to the training ecosystems that exist in form of academic offerings, boot camps, grassroots programming trainings, and many others that Africans have been able to benefit from. Then I'll also be able to speak to the community initiatives and the collaborations that exist in Africa, and then speak a bit to the challenges that some of us are familiar with, and some of them are global, others are more localized to the African context, but also think around the pathways that exist in terms of the strategies for scaling inclusive AI capacity across the continent. I am ably informed that I can go ahead with the presentations, and then if you have any questions, please feel free to post them in the chat, or maybe you can always have your hand raised so that by the end of the presentation, we can be able to extend the discussion further. So let's think about the numbers. So every other time I talk about numbers, I feel very excited. And so these headlines here that you're seeing around these numbers, I do not take them for granted being a statistician, because when you think about AI startup funding, speaking to the tune of $803 million in a year, and then you're talking to around 159 African AI startups with more than 50,000 Africans or young talents trained annually across the 54 countries, then we begin to appreciate the fact that Africa sits at a position whereby there's so much diversity and there's so much that is of interest that needs to be focused on. And so, for example, if you're speaking to agriculture AI, there's a lot of investment that is coming up around aerobotics, which most recently raised around $17 million for crop disease detection using computer vision methods. And these are just some of the methods that we employ in machine learning and artificial intelligence so that we are able to get predictive around scenarios that affect us. And this particular aerobatics initiative has been able to improve 30% of crop yield just because of their predictive capabilities. And they've been able to reach 2 million plus farmers, cutting across about 10 countries. And then when we are looking at it in terms of health and AI, we are talking about AI-powered maternal health tools that have helped reduce mortality by around 25% in pilot regions, with around 1,200 plus health facilities benefiting, and also 500,000 patient diagnoses. And this is also deployed around 15 countries. When you're speaking to education AI, which is actually the critical bit, because education is also getting into a high level of advancement in Africa, then we realize that there are lots of personalized learning platforms reaching around 2 million plus African students, which has improved learning outcomes by around 40%. And we have around 12 languages that have been supported, and that positions Africa very well in the global map, with around 500 plus schools that are able to connect to AI or machine learning capabilities. So we actually see this kind of data and this kind of statistics just trying to let us know by numbers exactly, is there a revolution happening in Africa? And yes, data can actually confirm that. We can be able to appreciate the fact that a lot is happening in Africa. And all we need to do is just to see exactly where do we sit at. Are we still at the foundational levels, or are we making progress, albeit in a slow process? Yeah. Let's also look at the policy and investment. So again, we get to realize that when we look at the government and AI policies and the investment landscape, we will be able to notice that a lot is already happening. For example, the African Union recently launched a continental AI strategy, and that was sometime last year, mid last year. And several countries have now been able to have their national AI strategies, which also integrate development partners who have committed over billions of dollars to be able to support these AI-related initiatives. And of course, many of them aim to, of course, create and strengthen the ecosystems around the research, the trainings, and the startups that focus in AI. The ones that have been listed here are the ones that really stood out. And if you're able to look them up, you'll be able to realize that they've made quite advancements since the AU continental strategy was launched. So we do have like Rwanda, Egypt, Mauritius, Tunisia, Morocco, Ghana, having quite comprehensive strategies, with Rwanda having an investment of about $100 million, followed by, well, for the AI investment funds, we also have Egypt, which is actually the highest investor when it comes to AI in Africa, sitting at $2 billion for the national AI strategy that is running up to 2030. And then Mauritius also has established an AI council, and this was established in 2023. And I've also indicated in terms of investment trends, we're also getting to realize that 83% of AI startups that are funded concentrate mostly in Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, and Egypt. But of course, there are other countries that are also doing quite a lot when it comes to the investment. So I only picked the first four, but we do have all the other countries featured in one or another in terms of their investments around AI. And this cuts across even setting up regional centers of excellence, but also cross-border data sharing frameworks. I also want to speak to the policy timelines that countries are currently following. And so did indicate for the implementation timeline of 2020, from 2024 to 2030, which was the recommended. Please confirm if you're still able to view my screen, Awa.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Yeah, so when we are talking about the continental strategy, which was launched last year, it is actually establishing 5 focus areas and 15 action points for all the 55 member states. But they're looking at by 2025, which is this year, 8 countries are already having a comprehensive AI strategy, and 15 of them are developing frameworks with a commitment of around 1.2 billion that is coming from the development partners. We are also seeing the rise of regional centers, and the plans ahead for the same. And so a number of countries, in terms of their policy and implementation plan, are very keen to see that within 2026 and 2027, which is like about 2 years, we'll have more regional centers of excellence that are established across all the 5 African regions to support the cross-border data sharing agreements that were activated during the 2024 Continental Strategy launch. But of course, there is a clear plan towards the full implementation up to the 2030. And I wouldn't look at this as an ambitious plan because African Union is very committed to see that all the 55 member states with national AI strategies are able to fit within the continental AI governance framework, which would be operational, and that would actually advance the economic impact in terms of if you're to monitor the target, then you'll be speaking to around $5 billion. I want to just showcase some of the countries and how they have implemented this strategy and how it actually interprets. So, for example, the countries that stood out to have been quite advanced, as I did mention, were Rwanda, Egypt, and Mauritius. Rwanda is at $100 million plus when it comes to the AI investment fund established, with the policy running since 2023 all the way up to 2030. And then, of course, we have Egypt, which is at $2 billion with its strategy. They have their AI applied in 5 priority sectors within the Middle East and North Africa region, with the capability of training 30,000 specialists and also being able to establish the AI Research Center. Mauritius also had its own AI Council established in 2023, and so they're currently running their national AI strategy, but they're keen to have their regional AI governance hub and also a cross-border AI collaboration framework. We also have countries that are making significant progress towards their national AI strategies. But before I get to that, maybe I'll just speak to, in terms of the investments and the commitment that we're able to realize. So here I've just showcased like 3 of the countries, but in terms of the investments and the commitments, the top featuring countries in Africa were Egypt. I'd indicated Egypt is actually the highest investor when it comes to AI. And then we also have Nigeria and South Africa. But consistently, you will notice the commitments that most of these countries have put and the allocations that they have actually, and what they have actually allocated. There's quite, it's not really proportionate. So we see a lot of commitment, but with very minimal allocation. And that would speak to maybe some of the challenges that most of these African countries are having to deal with. But of course, in the long run, we are seeing, if you are to think through 2030, then we'll be speaking to an equivalent of $5.1 billion as total government investment across Africa. For now, we have North Africa that is leading. So for North Africa, Egypt stands out quite, and then it's followed by East Africa, where we have Kenya, Uganda, Ethiopia, Tanzania, Rwanda, and then West Africa, where we have Nigeria and Ghana coming in very closely. So we know very well, like strong policies, frameworks, they still leave implementation gaps. And so here are the main ones that are that could be some of the possible solutions. So when you look at the challenges, I tried to highlight these challenges in more of a SWOT framework. So appreciating what are some of the strengths within these policies and the implementation process, what are the weaknesses, what are some of the threats that these countries are dealing with in terms of their implementation process, and what are the opportunities that exist that they can be able to tap into. So appreciating the strengths of the policy framework is first and foremost the continental strategy alignment. I think if there is one thing that is making very significant success in terms of alignment, it is the AI policy framework, because countries within Africa are really committed to see that it aligns with the continental strategy. And so there's a lot of similarity between the continental strategy and the national framework. But at the same time, there's the difference. We have also the differentiated and localized requirements that varies from one country to another. There is a lot of development partner support that the countries have been able to appreciate that comes along. And so in terms of funding, partners are coming in very strongly to be able to fund most of this, the implementation of most of this framework. And then there's also the foundational regulatory framework, which is also featuring quite strongly for this policy. But now when we look at some of the gaps, then we are worried about the technical capacity, but also the funding. Much as we do have the partners, the funding is not sufficient. Data governance has been an issue, and it's now catching up with us in the AI space, because Africa just has its own weakness when it comes to data governance and data ethics and anything around data. And so it really triggers the slow regulatory adoption. And then when we talk about the threats, then there's also the fragmented approach towards the implementation. There's a common concern on the brain drain. So we see a lot of human resource shifting to invest into other regionals, to the global north or to other developed spaces to be able to support the implementation of their AI work, but at the expense of their country. So a lot of training and investment in terms of the technical capabilities, but now when it comes to giving back to the community, then we have to deal with the differentiated preferences. And then there's what is called the data colonialism and inadequate infrastructure. So these are some of the threats that are featuring quite strongly as affecting the policy implementation. But even so, we can tap onto the leapfrog technologies, the public-private partnership models, the continental data governance, and also the regional cooperations that are opportunities that are the low-lying fruits that could actually help to strengthen and see how best we can ensure Africa gets to the next level. I also want to take you through regional snapshots to illustrate how these dynamics play about. So within the AI policy landscape for South Africa, we have the AI institutional leadership. Again, I tried to just get the monetary value of this AI investment and also appreciate a few things that stood out when it comes to AI. So for South Africa, there are 6 AI hubs that are within the different provinces, and also they have their national AI strategy. In Kenya, we have the digital economy blueprint. And most recently, we have our AI policy. There was the AI strategy that has been going through the legislative approval. And so it's running all the way up to 2029 with around $400 million commitment. There's a big hub in Kenya that most of the people who visited Kenya before in technology-related tours, or for the Kenyans, the Konza Technopolis is actually a promising hub that will elevate the implementation of the digital economy blueprint. But also we have a mass of people who've been trained and are AI specialists, with many more being trained on a daily basis. So 50,000 is actually not the figures as of today, because I want to believe by the time this was captured as the actual empirical value up to today, then we have even more than 50,000. Nigeria also has its national AI strategy that runs until 2023, with around $500 million investment into the development fund, and also about 1 million AI professionals as their target by 2030. Ghana also has its AI strategy as so for these three countries that I have indicated are the ones that appear to be having a clarity on their AI policy landscape. And then we also have the emerging AI policies. So Ghana has its AI strategy for 2023 to 2028 with about $150 million to support the implementation of these strategies and targeting to train 10,000 AI professionals. With a center of excellence that would support for AI training and policy implementation. That's the Ghana India Kofi Annan Center for Excellence. In Senegal also, we have the Digital Senegal 2025, which is an AI component in the National Digital Strategy. So this has supported the AI hub that was established in Dakar, and also it's supporting for the Francophone AI leadership roles. Then Cameroon also, these are largely West Africa. Cameroon also has its Yaoundé AI Research Center, which is also supporting with the implementation and capacity building for AI, with an investment of around $50 million in terms of funding. And then when you get to look at East Africa, we have Ethiopia, we have Uganda, and we have Tanzania. You notice consistently, these countries I'm highlighting as just case examples because there are many other countries that are also featured in terms of their investment. So each of these countries is also trying their best to ensure that they have a research hub and they also have a research center as part of their strategy to ensure that they're able to implement their policy and be able to also expand. So you notice there's a bit of funding that goes in there. Some of them has partnership, others are government funded. Yeah. But what stood out for me, of course, with the buzz of just trying to understand the Great Lakes ecosystem was the Ugandan National AI Framework that is taking into account the Great Lakes Region AI coordination. And so that will benefit the Lake Victoria, Great Lakes, and of course, all the rivers that flow into it. So you're looking at it more from a partnership or more continental kind of a structure that will be able to benefit most of the African countries collaboratively. And so by region, North Africa stands out. Of course, Egypt and Morocco have a bigger share in terms of the AI investments by government. And then West Africa, well, East Africa comes in second. We have West Africa. We also have South Africa and Central Africa. I'd already indicated by 2030, we are looking at 5.1 billion total investment of the same. So now if you look at the research and higher education, again, by different regions. And so when we speak about research and higher education learning, we are trying to combine all the academic provisions that are offered in different institutions, but also trying to appreciate the human capacity that exists, the interest that students have shown towards enhancing their academic excellence in AI-related courses, and also beyond just the academic offering, the research funding that also exists in some of these institutions. And when I tried looking up for South Africa, I realized that there are 3 universities that were standing out in terms of the investment in data science and AI. So, for example, the University of Pretoria has a strong program for data science for social impact. It's a research group that has over 45 AI researchers, but works very closely with the university faculty to be able to support students in their learning, but also to be able to run research that influences research around social impact. And they have very strong collaboration with the Absa Bank. And so they're able to fund their AI research, but align it most closely to social good. University of Cape Town also has quite a number of graduate courses and research funding on the same, and that has positioned them strategically towards very active research that goes into understanding the African ecosystem, whereas not everyone who studies in the University of Cape Town is required to do AI and understand exactly how it affects Africa, a good number of them have been able to publish. And so now we are able to find a lot of resources on where AI sits, on where we are at in Africa, because of the kind of research that has gone out there in terms of publication. And so University of Cape Town stood out with 100 plus AI publications annually and industry partnerships with the other corporates, about 20 plus. The University of Witwatersrand is also following the same with a deep learning research group that is also trying to empower and enhance capacity to graduate students around deep learning methodologies, which is also an element in AI. So why am I presenting all this? So I have spoken to the government investment towards the policy framework and all that. And now I've shifted gears again and I'm speaking to the academic ecosystem and what's exactly happening. And if you're keen to notice, you're speaking to sort of like puzzles. And these puzzles, you want to put them together and be able to realize that every piece of this puzzle, be it the government, be it the academic space, be it the startups, when they fit in together, then they're working towards the common good of investing into African ecosystem, into the data science and AI. Nigeria, we also have University of Lagos, African University of Science and Technology, the OAU University that have also come out very strongly towards AI data science education, but also getting to support industry partnerships, graduate scholarly work, publications that would help to inform exactly what exists, what kind of research we have in Africa, what kind of solutions can AI can get into can be integrated into the African context. And then for Kenya, we also have AI education and research centers. JKUAT has been investing a lot through their JHub Innovation Center. We have University of Nairobi also with a lot of funding and support for graduate students and industry partnerships. And Strathmore University through their at iLab Research Africa Research Center that has more than 30 AI faculty and also has a huge investment in terms of AI research, but also runs lots of seminars and symposiums and conferences that bring in together the AI experts to be able to speak and exactly understand what's the mileage in terms of research. So across the continent, there are very many other centers forming a broader network of excellence. And so thinking about it, you notice the centers might appear to be few, especially from this bar graph that I'm showing here, the comparative bar graphs. So we have fewer centers, but each center, you notice that they have quite a number of researchers. So in terms of researchers, while there appear so many to the few centers, it's only an indication that there's a lot of interest that has grown and is growing towards enhancing capacity of researchers into understanding AI. And so we are speaking to over 1,000 AI researchers who are Africans and work in African institutions to be able to advance AI research. And of course, 50 plus centers already that exist. There are also other additional sub-Saharan AI centers. Again, in Ethiopia, there's an AI and robotics research center at the Addis Ababa University with over 40 plus AI researchers. And it positions itself as the Horn of Africa AI hub. In Ghana, we also have the Department of Computing Science that focuses on AI. And then in Uganda, Makerere University has the AI and data research group, which also supports research around the Great Lake region AI research and also has a number of researchers who are very keen to advance AI research. So in terms of the formal education pathways, if you are to think about it, we are seeing a lot of African data centers coming in. Some of them are embedded into the universities. Some of them are standalone hubs. We are seeing universities offering academic programs that students get to graduate with qualifications in AI and data science and AI. We are seeing a lot of institutions and partners, corporate partners, academic institutions across different regions and also globally, getting into all this space to be able to enhance the regional network. And so there's very strong partnership that already exists within the African ecosystems. And there are more and within the PhD pipeline, and maybe if I could say the graduate students pipeline, we have more than 50 African PhD candidates within Africa. Studying in African institutions, graduating from African institutions. So that is how we were able to discern and see exactly when we talk about 50 plus, what do we mean? So here we are only referring to African students who have studied in African institutions and graduated in African institutions, and they're focused in AI and machine learning. And so we have about 50 plus annually, which is still a low number, but it is okay because that's like a 60% return to contribute to the local ecosystem. So it's not very bad, I would say. But again, we need to appreciate that formal learning isn't the whole story. So community programs would actually fill the critical gaps that we get to think about. And we see all these Pan-African networks that are coming out very strongly as training ecosystems. And they have benefited more than 1,000, more than 100,000 Africans. So in terms of the Pan-African networks, we are familiar with Deep Learning Indaba. Deep Learning Indaba is a large community initiative that has invested a lot of its research around the African context, around the African languages. And so we are seeing a lot of interest into putting the African languages, the indigenous languages, into the global map. We see a lot of researchers getting into translation models. We are seeing a lot of researchers getting into trying to do beyond just translation models, but also voice recognition that appreciates the low-resourced languages. And when we say low-resourced languages here, we mean the languages that are not necessarily, do not have a digital presence. And so those are our local languages that we speak. So Deep Learning Indaba has been running conferences for close to a decade now. And through that conference, they've been able to have over 1,000 participants that cut across 40 African countries. The Deep Learning Indaba is also very strategic to ensure that all their events and all their annual conferences, they run within Africa for Africans. Data Science Africa is also another initiative that cuts across 15 countries and has benefited around 5,000 plus practitioners. Masakane, that focuses a lot again on the African languages. Masakane AI has brought around 500 plus researchers globally, because now we are also seeing the interest of the global North and the global South are connecting together to be able to see how best they can improve the models so that these models can be able to fit into local languages and be able to address local context programs. We have Data Science Nigeria as a national movement that supports the training of Nigerians with around 20,000 already trained and a target of 1 million to be trained through the Data Science Nigeria movement. We have AI Kenya, again, has supported over 100 plus startups and also trained over 5,000 members. Zindi, which is a local, Zindi is actually the African kind of Kaggle, a platform that supports data scientists to access data, but also pulls in a lot of competition where Africans are able to compete for different prizes through hackathons, innovation sprints, and the likes. So Zindi also comes in very handy in that. So Zindi is actually a replica for Kaggle, but now focusing a lot on African data. We have Women in ML Africa, which purposes to have the inclusivity and also to appreciate the efforts that women are putting forward towards their capacity around AI. And Women in ML Africa has been able to train 3,000 plus members across, and it has over 50 chapters across Africa. We also have the Black in AI Africa, which is a more of a research entrepreneurship network, but also supports with the capacity building of AI. There's the Django Girls, which trains around 5,000 plus women in more than 25 countries. So, of course, then what kind of research do these people try to handle? That's another thing that we want to understand. So you all know that our ecosystem is different, and sometimes you want to see exactly where you would fit. Of course, there's a lot of investment around climate at the moment, language and culture, and also a lot of AI investment into healthcare. So Africa has also shifted quite seamlessly into those priority areas. And so we have specialized communities that focus on those kind of priority areas. So like the African AI, the AfriClimate AI, it supports with the grassroots community climate resilience in Africa, but also has over 100 researchers that work in 15 different countries. Health AI framework is another one. And then we also have the language and culture, which looks at indigenous language datasets and also trying to preserve endangered languages. Like my own language, the Suba language is an endangered language, and so it's part of the languages that the language and culture community is trying to see how best they'll be able to preserve it. What are the impacts of these community initiatives? When they exist exactly, what do we expect? How are they getting to benefit our communities in Africa? So I have spoken quite a lot about the deep learning in Daba, the Data Science Africa, Masekane community, and I speak to their collective contribution towards enhancing the capacity because the members in deep learning in Daba, a good portion of them are also benefiting in Data Science Africa, and another significant proportion are also in Masakane initiative. And you realize that there's a lot of overlap in terms of interest and the people who get to be trained. And so that's why I got to think around the numbers from a cumulative perspective, and that's around 50,000 plus Kenyans annually. Masakane has been there for some time. Deep learning in Daba has been there for some time. And so if you think around 50,000 per year for the next 10 years, then you'll be speaking around 5 million. And the effect is something that would be massive because you'd only imagine having many people knowledgeable about AI and how they can be able to invest into their own small spaces, small projects, or collaboratively. Data Science Nigeria, AI Africa, AI Kenya, and other country-specific initiatives have been training around 100,000 Africans annually. And so that is also another good space. And the specialized communities, like those ones that are keen on inclusion, the ones that are more specific to priority areas, and the Zindi also have benefited another 50,000. So we'd be able to realize that while a classroom for an academic space can only accommodate a cohort of maybe 50 students at a go, maybe 100 students at a go, or 500 students at a go, these kind of community initiatives are able to do the mass training. And so knowledge is being transferred massively through these particular communities. And so they're actually complementing what the academic space is able to offer. I want to also speak to a few success stories that illustrate the pathways from training to impact. Forgive my bias around Masakane. I'm a member of the Masakane initiative. And so we have seen a lot of progress and involvement within this community. And so thinking around the global impact, Google has been able to give 3 million plus grant in terms of dollars for the African Language AI Hub. And they have over 30,000. They have over 30 plus languages, African languages that they have been able to work on. And so these are actually open source. So if you go to the Masekane page, you should be able to see which of these languages are listed there and where you're able to get the data. And there are over 10 million Africans who are able to access AI in their native languages. So that already speaks to the global impact that this kind of community initiatives are enhancing. Zindi has been able to enhance competitions that equate to over $500,000 in terms of prizes to African data scientists. 70% of the winners have been able to get employment within 6 months. 200 plus of these African companies are also sourcing talent from the Zindi competition because that's where they're able to tell the technical capabilities are also see how best they can be able to empower people who go through such competition. So I always encourage students and the young innovators to be able to get into some of these challenges because Zindi sits at a position of partnership and where Zidi sits as we also have all these companies that look for talent. They're able to source talent. And so they're able to see some of your work that you do through Zindi and any other of these platforms. And that's how they get to reach out to people. And of course, in terms of movement, again, I've indicated that Data Science Nigeria is looking at training talent of up to 1 million by 2030. AI Kenya has been able to support over 100 startups, AI startups specifically since 2017, and there's a lot of cross-border collaboration for 50 plus AI projects that is happening. Inclusion, as I did mention, also has a strong influence in the growth of AI in Africa, data science and AI in Africa. So most currently, we have noticed that women are now leading around 35% of the African AI communities, and this is an increase. Might appear very progressive, but yes, it is a good increase since 2018, where we had only 10% of women in some of these community initiatives. But of course, we have 40% of these women participating across all the programs. Other success stories, I spoke to this robotics that was started by the Deep Learning Indaba and a Deep Learning Indaba alumni. So this was a Deep Learning Indaba, was a member of the Deep Learning Indaba, or somebody who was able to attend the Deep Learning Indaba events and started the robotics and was able to get like $17 million to be able to enhance the startup. And this startup is focusing on crop monitoring across 10 countries. And so it has benefited the local communities. That speaks to the tune of 2 million plus farmers. And if you are to translate that into the production, then you can only imagine how massive it is. That farmers are more knowledgeable to predict disease and also to report in good time. And so we go more into preventive measures rather than curative measures or corrective measures. So it's more of preventive than corrective. And then, of course, when it comes to maternal health, the University of Rwanda graduates developed an AI tool that so far has been able to reduce maternal mortality in pilot regions by around 25%. And now they're currently deploying it in 5 countries that has benefited around 5,000 plus patients. So I spoke to gender equity in African AI. We are seeing women are coming up so strongly. Well, men are still championing, but it's good that we see men are also trying to support women to get into this AI space, and there's a lot of increase on interest for women to get into the same space. So we spoke to the policy implementation challenges and opportunities, and now I've shifted gears. I'm speaking to the scaling challenges and opportunities. Of course, that aligns very closely with academic offerings and also community initiatives. And so what we appreciate is that these initiatives, whether they are academic research hubs or their community initiatives, they have enhanced a strong community network. We've seen growing university programs. There's a lot of increased private investment and also real-world problem focus. But the digital divide is real, it's a threat. So we still see like 10% more women are vulnerable to AI automation, and also there's a competition for global talent. So those are some of the threats. And then looking at it in terms of the weaknesses, here is where now we speak to the limited infrastructure for computing. So computing resources are expensive. It's also a global concern, but it's very unique for Africa because it's nearly not affordable. And so when we have all these partners coming in to invest into this, priority that we need to speak to into ensuring that we have sufficient infrastructure for computing that can be able to support the massive data and the massive investment that you're seeing through the policy frameworks, that you're seeing through the academic offerings, that you're also seeing through the community initiatives. Of course, internet is a big deal in Africa, so it's not something that I can talk to sufficiently enough. And also, while we have all these opportunities for some disciplines, especially in the healthcare space, we don't have sufficient local data sets. And it boils down to data governance and data governance related issues. But what are some of the opportunities? We are seeing 54 country market leapfrog technology, and you're also seeing growing government support and also a lot of money that is put on the investment of startup funding. So those are opportunities that you can always tap into. And if you do the risk analysis here, you realize that with proper governance and looking at the strengths and the opportunities that do exist, then we can be able to appreciate that somehow we can be able to override some of the weaknesses and the threats that we have to deal with when it comes to scaling and the policy implementation of AI frameworks. So when I was showing the policy frameworks that exist and the implementation plan, most of these strategies are actually running up to 2030. And so what is the roadmap? So the foundation here was to establish 10 regional AI centers of excellence and train over 100,000 Africans and be able to create over 1,000 local data sets. That is actually achievable because by so doing, we are looking at the growth phase where we'll be able to see about 500,000 trained professionals, about 50% women participation, and deploying AI models in 1,000 plus communities. And so we are looking at the richness and diversities of the communities that we have. And so those are also the target, and it's important to have that as a roadmap. At the mastery phase, according to our strategy, assuming the last 2 years at the mastery phase, then we should be able to lead global initiative, AI innovations with African solutions. So we are speaking about being at the global map, but speaking to African solutions, we should be able to export expertise and achieve like a $5 billion in AI economic impact. So each phase, if you notice, it combines training, it combines infrastructure, it combines policy, and it also combines partnership, which were the key areas that I was speaking to in this presentation. And so a vision to be able to anchor all of this. I would love to end my session by saying Africa will not just participate in the global AI revolution, it will lead it with solutions rooted to our realities, our communities, and our aspirations. So the future depends on the hybrid learning pathways, the strong communities of practice, the purpose-driven innovations. Together, we can build an inclusive AI ecosystem that serves all Africans and inspires the world. Thank you.
Thank
so I
you
have
very
some list of references here that I'll also be able to share with you from where I was able to get the data. But thanks so much. I'll back to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Kianda, for a very informative talk. And the audience, you can ask your questions by raising your hand and we'll be unmuted to speak, or you can type it in the Q&A section. And I think you already have some questions there. So if you want to go ahead from Solomon and see if you want to answer those questions while we hear from others.
Okay. So I see Solomon has asked, the first question here is, how does the AI strategy in Africa fit the African Union 2063? The Africa We Want initiative, now that the second phase has started with acceleration as a theme, what role does AI play in achieving the SDGs and contributing to a continental coordinated strategy? So what I'm understanding here, Solomon, that you are asking is to be able to understand exactly how does the AI strategy fit in the African AU 2063 strategy. There's a lot of if you look at the 2063 strategy for African Union, there's a lot of technological investment that African Union is envisioning between now and 2063 to be able to enhance like a regional impact. And so when we speak to technology and advancement of technology, where we sit at today, there's no way we can miss to speak around AI. And that is why the African Union is trying to push different governments to really ensure that the policy implementation process rolls out actively and as fast as possible, like running within 6 years, because remember, the continental strategy was launched last year. And so it needs to run up to 2030. We are hoping that by 2030, most of the countries should be able to have implemented the continental policy framework, but also aligned to their specific country requirements, because it is a tool that will help support get to the 2063 African AU strategy, the African Union strategy of the Africa we want. I don't know if that really responds to your question, but I believe there's a very massive requirement, or rather engagement, around AI and technology that AU is looking at to help advance African priorities, and that's why the AI strategy comes in very handy. And then you also asked again, OTIC group in Uganda is investing a lot of energy in AI development, awareness, and upskilling. They have recently expanded their work into Rwanda. They've recently expanded their work into Rwanda. Where does Uganda stack up? So I don't understand what you ask by where does Uganda stack up, if you could be able to clarify what that is. And then you're saying, as you clarify on that, you're also asking, what is the significance of this report by the MasterCard Foundation relative to your presentation? Your presentation is more a bit about Africa AI strategy. So I may need to just open this and understand exactly what it is talking about. But if you can unmute and just speak a bit to it, then I can be able to respond to your question.
Solomon, I unmuted you. You can ask your question.
Uh, Dr. Otiende, thank you so much. I loved your presentation. I really did.
Thank you so
There's
much.
just so much that you packed into it. That is such a rich report. So I can't wait to sort of go back and read it and learn more about it. So I just wanted to say that at the outset. No, I've become aware of an organization or a group called OTIC in Uganda, and I wasn't sure if you knew about them. Uh, they seem to be a national player in the Ugandan AI sort of landscape, and so I just thought I would mention them for perhaps for your own curiosity to learn more about what they're doing and whether or not they are being successful in the both the AI awareness strategy, but also the upskilling of individuals, and now they're going beyond Uganda to Rwanda as well. So we're just curious if you knew about them and perhaps you want to look into them. So that was really my point with respect to Uganda, and so you know. So I'm always happy to hear about Kenya, about Nigeria, and these big countries. But then there's also Uganda, kind of playing a role, and I think so. It's not just South Africa and these big countries, but also some of the smaller countries are trying to get themselves involved and engaged in the AI space. So that's that. I just wanted to share that. Yeah,
Thanks so
and
much.
then the Mastercard report. It's been a while since I've read it, but it was actually published not too long ago, and I wasn't sure if you are aware of it, but you might. I thought I would share the link. And when I said your report is more upbeat because you talk about the many data centers that are being established, and the one of the things that take away from me from reading that report was that there weren't enough data centers, that it was going to be so difficult to really do much without having data centers established throughout uh, the African continent. So I found kind of your report was much more upbeat, much more promising. Theirs was like more about the issues and the challenges that needed to be overcome. So trying to reconcile those two was sort of why I wanted to share that report with you.
Thanks so much, Solomon. So as you were just speaking, I went through the report and I do agree they've spoken about the deficits and also the challenges, in fact, around the policy implementation. And I do agree with you quite. It's not like we're doing so well in Africa anyway. But I was coming from a point of, with the little that we have, we're already trying to notice this promising impact. And so if you were to double or triple that, you can only imagine how great it would be, because Africa has maybe the largest population in the world. And so if you speak to one center of excellence in a country, I mean, even if you have 54 centers of excellence, they can never be enough for the kind of the demand that Africa has in terms of AI and data science. So I quite agree with the report, and I'll also take some time to get to read it further. But yes, I do agree. We are not yet there, but we are somewhere, I would say so. Thank you.
We have another Solomon that wants to speak. So Solomon Ochue Uburu.
Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. I'm calling from Kampala, Uganda, and I'm passionate about new technologies. I'm a lecturer, and sometimes I use the same for writing books, ideas, and whatever. But I would like to ask this question. There are two questions. One, we seem to be very passionate about the emergence of artificial intelligence in the intellectual and educational landscape of Africa. Are these initiatives shared by the Africans, or it is a wholly cut and paste from Western technologies? That's number one. Number two, we already hear that some of these Nordic countries are banning use of AI in the learning systems of their schools or education institutions. And yet in Africa, we are all embracing it without any question, without much research by our scientists. Won't we be getting scam interferences and all those that can disable our thinking system, especially that in Africa, we have very poor reading culture. I've already seen in the universities, students, when you give them coursework, they just they use AI to download, to twist and turn, and then bring to you to mark. What exactly are we doing? Are we not entering some dangerous areas with AI? Thank you, Madam Vera Otiende.
Solomon, thank you so much for your question. I'm actually smiling, but I'm smiling because I like the diversity of how people look at AI and the concerns that people have raised around AI. Of course, in the academic space, educators are fearful that students are going to copy more. In the corporate space, people are fearful that AI is going to take their jobs. But the hard reality is we have to integrate AI in our workflows. That is the hard reality. Now, there's always a case example that is presented to many of us. When the calculator was being introduced into the learning system, there were concerns around creativity, critical thinking, and those kind of concerns, And well, somehow the calculators are being used, but that did not affect how students think or how they learn. It made them even more innovative on how to go about the use of calculators and even propose other ideas, So the workflow of using those digital, of just using an ordinary calculator was not accommodated as fast, but somehow it happened. And then came the computers, and then came internet. And all these were concerns, similar concerns that were raised. And then now we have AI with us here. Well, AI is moving super fast because AI can just do a lot of things, including dangerous things. But it goes down to what policies exist. And so when I was speaking to at national level, what are these strategies around AI? It's not just about adoption. It's about governance. It's about ethics. It's about responsible use. And if you were to check the continental strategy, you'll realize they put a lot of emphasis on that. How are the governments going to put guardrails to ensure that much as we are adopting AI, there's responsible use, it doesn't expose people to bigger challenges. But at institutional level, academic institutions now, they really have to think about how they're going to remodel, because it's a revolution, it's happening, how they're going to remodel the teaching approach, the learning approach. How is it going to be creative, and how are they going to integrate AI? And so in Africa, when we still were in self-pity that we are not keen to integrate AI into our learning systems and get innovative around it and also learn as educators, there is improvement, or rather similar kids in a different area, like maybe in Asia, which is still part of the global south, like places like China and whatever, are being introduced into digital education as early as grade 6. But it's being done in a way that there's proper governance around it. Ethics is priority so that it does not come in as a point of harm, not for the educator and not for the learner. So do we want to benchmark and get to understand exactly how are they doing it? Because with internet came a lot of cyber insecurities, cyber crimes, and AI is even advancing the same thing, not advancing per se, but AI got to learn that that exists. And so AI is just a tool. So we look at AI tools and not ChatGPT. AI, by the way, I know when you talk about AI for educators, they always think about large language models and generative models. That is just a portion of artificial intelligence. There is a lot around AI that comes into modeling and redefining. So when you get to understand exactly what happens in terms of modeling and fine-tuning models and all that, then you'll get to appreciate AI at a different scale. But yes, it is something that is here with us, and so we just want to have policies and guardrails that would support us around adopting it in a more responsible way, I would say so. Solomon, I hope that responds to your question.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah. Joseph, you can go ahead.
Thank you so much, Dr. This was a wonderful presentation and eye-opening for me. I'm Joseph, speaking, of course, from Nairobi. There's just one question that I have that I wanted to seek clarification. There is a body that is known as Smart Africa, which recently convened technical experts to discuss issues around establishing AI Africa Council. So I don't know, is it within the African Union mandate, or this is just a separate body? And that being said, so how are they positioned, like in a pivotal position to be able to bring in academia, industry, and there's one just to work around the eye and help Africa harness and realize its potential when it comes to artificial intelligence? Yes, that's my question.
Okay. I wouldn't say I'm familiar with the institution that you have mentioned, but what I know is for such registered institutions, the regulatory requirements require them to always the regulatory provisions that require them to partner with government agencies and seek government approval towards supporting crowdsourcing of information around how best they can be able to frame the national policy, AI policy strategy or AI strategy and all that. So you'll be able to see lots of institutions that are and looking at the AI strategy from different angles. And most of them, if you are to follow closely, you realize that they're regulated by the government, and also they come in as partners to be able to support the government so that the government can get very objective and see how best they can be able to refine and accommodate and have an inclusive strategy that is able to support our partners. So I'll put it in the position of the private-public partnership kind of arrangement, but more towards refining what goes out as a strategy that should be able to benefit not only a country, but also a continent. So there are a number of organizations that are like that at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can look at some couple of questions in the Q&A before we let Kehinde talk.
Sai is asking, how has AI benefited in the process of developing Africa? So, Sai, I don't know whether it is AI benefiting or Africa benefiting in the I'm not able to understand your question, but if I assume that you meant how is AI benefiting the process of developing Africa, then I would say in terms of, again, technology advancement, AI is coming in handy because Africa is actually at the pace of technology enhancement. And so AI for automation of services, for data curation, for mechanization, for automating processes, I think I would say so. For example, I'll take a simple example. Previously, we would walk into a banking hall or even a hospital facility and be able to just queue. So somebody would pass you on the queue. Nobody cares how the queue is. But when they introduced a queuing system whereby you have to pick a ticket through the ticketing system, which is also automated, because when you pick a ticket, then it gets to the next line of the workflow. Then it is your ticket that will be called, whether you're in the hospital or what, and then your matter will be handled as an urgency or just as any other case that would follow the pipeline. It also helps them to consolidate how are the services that they are offering, how efficient are they? Are they spending less time towards offering service? Is there a delay in the pipeline? Where exactly is the delay? So they're able to see how that really works. So that's just one simple case example when you now try to automate a process that, an end-to-end process that looks at from the time you arrived in hospital until the time you're either admitted or drug was dispensed, how long did you take and where was the delay? So it helps a lot with solving things like queuing problems and the likes. So that's one of the many benefits that I would be looking at, but that I would speak to, but there are many others. So that has come in handy. When Solomon, I think Solomon already responded to you. Alexandra Kim was asking, in what ways can AI strengthen governance? Also, how is African governments balancing AI? How are African governments balancing AI innovation and ethics? So when we speak to ethics and governance, that's why the strategy is the continental strategy and then the national strategy around AI. Those are the things that they speak to. So AI will not help strengthen governance anyway. Again, remember, AI is a tool that is used to ensure that processes run. And so if you have poor governance, it will only make it poorer. If you have a strong governance system, then it will become better. So AI comes in here to play. AI is here as a tool and not necessarily as a solution towards a compromised governance system or a non-functional governance system. How are AI governments balancing AI innovation with ethics? Again, when we speak about governance within the strategy, we can never miss to talk about ethics. And so whatever innovation that comes in, we have concerns around copyright, we have concerns around safety, we have concerns around access and all that, which falls squarely under ethics. So within the strategy, that should have been clearly stated, and it's part of the required continental strategy. Alexandra, I hope I have responded to your question. Then we have one final one from Ada. I have a question too. How are decisions made about allocating resources to AI? Who sets the priorities? Is it consistent regulations? So governments make decisions. They sit down to compare and look at it and map out exactly what do they want AI to do for them. What is the ripple effect? How many people are going to benefit? So it's always a risk-benefit analysis that I would say economists, where they sit, they're better off at explaining exactly how governments and the continent at large arrive to a given figure or resource that needs to be allocated to investments around AI. But there's always a risk analysis, a risk-benefit analysis that, or a benefit-risk analysis, I don't know how they call it, the economists themselves, but yes, there's a risk and a benefit analysis that is done to be able to understand, are we getting into an investment that is worth risking for? How much are we putting? And what's the return on investment? And so I put 100 shillings. At the end of the day, you can open a computer. That is the return on the investment of the 100 shillings that I put. At the end of the day, you can be able to discern that this is a cyber crime, this is cyberbullying that is being done by an AI agent because of the 100 shillings that I put. So that's the return on investment. So I risk my 100 shillings with the hope that you will be knowledgeable enough to know a cyberbullying situation, a cybercrime situation. And that makes me happy. So I think they do those kind of things, and then they're able to know how much they will allocate. Yeah.
Yeah, so I,
Yes.
Kehende.
Okay, good evening.
Good
Dr.
evening.
Vera Otiende, well done. Well done for the brilliant presentation. I tried to follow you, but the network was not friendly. It was on and off for me, but I was still able to get some of your points. I listened to you attentively when I could, and I can sense that you have done so much in the area of AI, which some of us are just trying to understand. I, as an academic, have not been using AI. I only started to familiarize myself with AI from some months ago. So, and my eyes are open to so much benefits that as a researcher, one can derive from AI. So my questions, I want you to tell me more about opportunities that are available for researchers through artificial intelligence in terms of funding, in terms of areas of research that we can focus on. Even though I'm not a scientist, my field is humanities, but I think AI cut across. So please, what are the funding opportunities and research opportunities for scholars in this era of artificial intelligence? So those are my two questions. Thank you and well done.
Thank you so much, Kehinde, for your question. So I guess maybe I'll be able to share with you some of the links that I use to collate all these resources. Some of them normally have, they always have the annual calls for funding and all that people can explore. So I will be able to circulate it to the participants who've been able to attend. But yes, we have a number of small grants that exist, which are done through institutions like the Masakani Initiative to be able to support with AI work around different, how do you call it, like different disciplines. And then we also have large grants that look at interdisciplinary engagements. For example, when you're speaking to low resource languages and you're speaking to healthcare and you're speaking to climate climate change. So you find like these big grants are able to bring like experts around the same fields to be able to see how best they can use the same grant to be able to address the 3 different concerns, but through the same grant. So I should be able to share some of the links that I do have, but that's not exhaustive. Those are just a few of the many links that do exist. But of course, when you subscribe to some of those links, they can also be able to take you to other links where you can be able to get funding opportunities.
Okay, one more question from Anthony.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Anthony?
Yes, this is Anthony Ngeresa. I appreciate your talk. I've listened in from the start. Dr. Vera, it's quite impressive. A quick one, just on, you talked about governance, and AI systems are dependent on governance. And from your presentations, I think you've covered different demographics when it comes to countries, East Africa, South Africa. Just like data protection, do you think we can have a minimum, what I will say, governance structure for AI, either in Africa, something equivalent to the Data Protection Act, the GDPR and all that, in a similar kind of governance, or I'll put it as checks and balances for AI, now that even in your talk, you covered different domains, be it health, be it education and all that. I don't know what your take is on how to have a quote-unquote standardized governance structure for all that. I don't know if I'm clear on that. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Anthony. I think that is one question that I have had people discuss quite a lot. And the confusion is always when it comes to governance of AI, how far do you want to go? So one time we were having a presentation somewhere and sort of like a debate, and we were trying to understand, should you have like firm guardrails on the capability of AI so that it's not able to do 1 or 2 things because of, for example, it's not able to give ideas on how people can, for example, commit suicide or rob a bank or commit cyber crimes and those kind of things? Or should you let it learn so that it has the strategies and then you're able to catch these people? I'm using just that as an example, yeah? So it's been so debatable on how best you can have an AI governance structure that balances so that it's not so restrictive, so that because an AI is an AI tool or an AI algorithm is trained with massive data, and the data should be good and bad so that it learns on both of them and then it becomes more intelligent. But now the catch is, if you limit it to information, then it becomes a bad model that is just, not bad, but is a model that is just aligned to only speaking to what it has been designed for. So in terms of governance, I know what the continental strategy speaks to. It's more of a minimum viable product. What is the best model? Like, how should it look like? And then countries now get specifics to, if you're speaking to cybersecurity, maybe you just want to hear the bare minimum guardrails. But in our country, because of specifics around culture, because of specifics around 1 or 2 things, then we have to add 1 or 2 more guardrails so that these are the strategy and this is the policy, or rather, this is the governance framework that we have as a country. So I guess the continental strategy is a minimum viable product already. What other countries are doing now within Africa is to customize and also adopt it to fit into their needs and what prescribes to their local structures. So you wouldn't have one that stands out for Africa. For example, if the governance was something that was affecting religion, in Africa we have different religions, and so different religions also have different ways on how they look at things, and so it can become a bit tricky to have just one that is governing the whole of Africa. But you can have a minimum viable one, which is now the continental strategy, that is what the other countries are now getting to adopt into. I hope that answers your question, Anthony.
Yeah, I think I appreciate it gives insights what you think about what I was just thinking in terms of how far the guardrails can go. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And then I'm seeing there's a question here from Solomon again. My language, Jopazola Luo, is one of the endangered languages. We are only about 400,000. How do you access startup funds to use AI to preserve it for posterity? So again, I'd indicated I'll share the list of resources. So I'll be able to do that, and then I know we'll be able to circulate it to everyone. But I know there are communities that exist that support with the preservation of some of these languages. At 400,000, you are endangered, but I think there are even languages that are now getting extinct. And so they try to see how best they can preserve their culture and all that. So yeah, I mean, it's a good initiative that I'll be able to share with you. So, I mean, you can check the Masakane initiative. Masakane initiative supports a lot of preservation of African languages and African culture. So you could check with them. They always have annual call for funds for data sets and curation and all that. So that could also be a good starting point. Yeah. Thank you. I don't know if there's any other question.
No, I don't think so. And we're very close to the end. And so I think we can stop here for today. And thank you again very much, Dr. Vera Otiende, for coming and sharing your research on AI with us. And thank you to everybody who attended and asked questions. We appreciate you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.